Welcome back on the AM show. And before we head to Dapaah and gauge the situation there, we're going to examine that accusation put forward by Oliver Barker-Vormawor, claiming that there was an attempt to bribe him together with his cohort with $1 million in order to drop some of what they've been doing, including the recent Occupy Julobi House demonstration. Well, joining us for a conversation on that, especially as the National Security Minister, Albert Dapaah, is suing Oliver Barker-Vormawor. We have Kweku Painsil, he's a lawyer, and shortly we'll be joined by Inusaf Hussaini as well. Mr. Painsil, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you so much for always indulging us and engaging us on this matter. For you, from the very fundamentals, I'm sure you heard Barker-Vormawor make these claims. How did you take it when you heard him?
Well, I had my doubts about his claim that there had been an attempt to bribe him and that it was not even of recent times. And I was wondering how it came to be that he could hide that for us for such a long time and be talking about it now. But that's my own hunch, my own suspicion, my own doubt. But it's got nothing to do with the truth, if the truth really exists.
If the truth really exists, there's that quote by Robert Evans, if I recall, that says there's always, when it comes to the truth, there is your side, my side, and the truth. So we'll find out where the truth lies. But interestingly, you know, per the law, evidence is the name of the game, and he who alleges must prove. When I listened to Oliver reiterate that, I think on day 2 of the demonstration, he said he had evidence to back it up. He had recordings to back it up. But now the National Security Minister is suing Oliver Barker-Vormawor. What do you think about that move?
Well, the minister has got a right to sue, except that because he's a politician, politicians allow a lot of things to lie. But I think once in a while, one must assert his civil rights to push people into the limelight or the spotlight to be able to prove what they claim to have or say. Because if you remember Amina Yutong, do you remember Amina Yutong incident?
The Yutong case?
Amina Yutong, that lady who claimed armed robbers stopped their car and they compared a man to sleep with his daughter and created a lot of...
No, that specific one, I don't think I recall.
No, I'm just giving an example. I'm talking about loose talk. I'm talking about how people in this country make all kinds of allegations. There are no fact checks. There are no nothing. And those things linger in the minds of people. And in the course of time, people take them as truth. Now, the point I'm making is that once in a while, somebody must face the music for allegations that they make and be compelled to prove them. Because if we're able to prove, there's a defense of justification in the law of defamation, because we say truth does not defame. But if we allow people just to make all kinds of statements, allow them, these things linger, and then they remain in people's minds, then people begin to state them as facts. So my starting position is that as a minister, I'm sure he indulges a lot of these things and whatever. But once in a while, people must accept a certain right. And for that reason, I think the minister is doing the right thing by pushing the accusers to come forward with whatever evidence that he has. You also said evidence. Let me comment very briefly. I mean, with due respect, this is my own appreciation of the matters, because based on what I've heard, this gentleman is talking about having recorded. That is to say, the evidence that he's going to rely upon is a secret recording, possibly, that he made. And
and the law has its own stance on that.
Yeah, if that's the only evidence that he has, then I believe that he's got a lot of trouble along the way, because the clear position that our Supreme Court have in recent times made on these issues is that you cannot use or rely upon a secret recording made with somebody who didn't know you were recording him. It's against public policy and all of that. And
yes, Lawyer Painsil, let's just unpackage this. He is a lawyer himself, and he knows what our laws say. There is also the court of public opinion. Imagine if this supposed tape, whatever it is, were to be put out there. We have a recent incident, the IGP case and the leaked tape. All of that is in there. Again, when it comes to our jurisprudence, barring whatever the Supreme Court has said, there are dynamics that sometimes change the outlook, especially when you look at the supreme interest of the nation. So if there is a tape that shows that indeed there was some promise of handing over some cash to this person together with his compatriots just so they would stop talking about national issues, is that something that merely on the face of the law we can throw into the dustbin and say, because it came through this means, we cannot use it?
No. You said court of public opinion. I remember the minister dared him or challenged him to bring the evidence. Because if we're trying it in a court of public opinion, that's going to be a bombshell. And nobody even needs to go to court. If you publish it and the minister says felt offended by your publication, that's a different ball game. But we're talking about a court of law and having refused, failed, or neglected to publish what you claim to have. So the question then becomes, what motive does he have? Does he really have the evidence, or was he mere bragging, and so forth and so on? But it is my position that if indeed he decided not to play it in a court of public opinion, and he's relying on our law courts to accept that type of evidence, I mean, I wouldn't want to go into a debate as to whether this is admissible or not. I'm just stating the general position. I have a fair idea of the exceptions that may push some of these things in, except that I don't even believe that in this type of case or this type of, given the particular facts of this particular case, even if he has the evidence, then truly he may be permitted to push it in through the court. And that's why it's in his best interest to play this game in the court of public opinion, because then when we all have the evidence, then we'll even begin to shame the minister. Then we'll begin to say that he's trying to use the courts to block this gentleman from expressing himself or from telling the truth. Because the allegations are more than serious. If indeed we've got enough money in this country for the Minister of State, I'm talking about Security Minister, to use it to bribe people who want to express or exercise their right to all kind of rights, fundamental human rights, then we are in big trouble.
And it doesn't end there. He makes mention of the fact that it wasn't just the National Security Minister, Albert Dapaah. He mentions that a general of our army was involved, and I think he also mentions another name. I don't know whether it's the Interior Minister or something of the sort, but he mentions 3 people. I remember that day hearing him on day 2 of the demonstration, making mention of them. These indeed are serious accusations, but if he is able to provide such evidence, whether or not they can be used in court, and they purport to claim that indeed there was some move to interfere with his group's activities, what then could that mean? Could that backfire in the face of the National Security Minister if such evidence, again, whether usable in court or not, or admissible in court or not, were to be put out there, for example, in the court of public opinion on social media? How much damage would that make?
No, that would be serious damage, because that's what I've said. I said that if this thing were to come out in the public domain and we really know what's going on behind the scenes, so that's to say that a minister or a collection of ministers have the business of bribing people, either coercing, intimidating, bribing them to restrain them or stop them from exercising their rights, then it's more than serious. But then that would be in the court of public opinion, to the point that even if the minister was to have his day in court, everybody will know that what's going on is a sham. In other words, I believe Ghana, or Ghanaians being who and what we are, will rather trust in what we have seen and heard, and then begin to shame the minister rather for trying to use the force to gag him from expressing or telling the truth about his situation. Then, as I said, even if the minister were to win his defamation case in court, in the court of public opinion, everybody will know that he's a shameful person. I mean, that's the way, and how I feel about this whole matter, and that is why I am thinking that if indeed the evidence exists, there's no good reason why that evidence must not be made available to all of us to make our own judgment, regardless or irrespective of whatever eventually comes out in court. That's the best way, in my honest opinion. Except that, you see, the gentleman is not only a lawyer, he's more of a politician, he's an activist. And I think that this game is played best in the public domain. I mean, that's my own view. Because I've been in that kind of arena before. I have a fair idea of all these issues of demonstration. We did it in those military days. And everybody's caught in public opinion. At the end of the day, it's the hearts and minds of the public, the people. And that's where the game is played. If you're a politician or you're trying to play that kind of game. But if he wishes to reserve it for the court itself, I'm talking about the court of law, to make a determination, I will tell him that he will lose out in the court of opinion. I mean, the court of law. And that's my gut feeling. He may or may not, end up the way I'm looking at. But I'm telling you, based on experience, based on knowledge, based on the way I know these things roll out eventually, that it is, Oliver Barker, whose best interest to play his game in the court of public opinion. Talking about the other people who allegedly were present with the minister, let me tell you what, there's nothing wrong. People run a government. It's a government that is run. And a government or a minister for security makes no error if he attempts to meet demonstrators or organizers of events and try to cut them out in the national interest. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
Without exchanging funds to seemingly coerce them.
That is so. Without bribe, without intimidation, without coercion and stuff like that. I mean, come on, they do it all the time. The law really expects that such things must be done. And when it comes to those matters, with due respect, it does not really matter. Any number of government ministers or officials can come together and pull those kind of deals out. So it's a legitimate weapon for a government minister to try and talk people out of intended actions and so forth and so on. But like you rightly qualified it, without all those trappings or those attractions or those intimidations. But at the end of it, my conclusion on this matter is that if evidence comes out that the money available to us as Ghanaians is being used to bribe people from exercising their rights, then we are in big trouble. We are in big trouble.
Okay. So just to wrap the conversation, I'd just like to find out from you. Looking at the legal dynamics, and yes, in a court of law, it would be pretty difficult. But if it came out and, like I said, out there, people realized that this is indeed what was happening, then again, it would create that friction between ordinary people and the law, the way it is applied here. Of course, we have our own rules in respect of recording people when they are not aware of what the situation is and using such evidence against them. But in such an instance, it becomes crucial, especially as we've been talking about corruption, bribery here and there. If you were counsel advising Oliver Barker-Vormawor and he had evidence to the effect that this indeed happened, what would be your counsel to him?
Oh, quite natural. Don't forget that now we even got pre-trial, conferences where you have to let your evidence. You have to obey the other party, the evidence is going to rely upon. So if this is going to do it in court, if they have the evidence today, I would rather advise him to send it to the minister for him to weigh his options very carefully. Even if with knowledge that the evidence may not be admissible in court, I will send it as a tactical weapon. In other words, I will ask you, because see, they claim that the evidence may not be admitted. Let me put it bluntly. At this stage, we are speculating. However strong the legal position is, don't forget that this is a common law court, and a judge has a right. This is not in statute, and a judge has a right to determine how evidence must be taken and stopped. So tactically, I will send the evidence to you, and you have to weigh and determine very carefully. Because once it comes in, however it comes in, whether it's smuggled in, even if it is rejected, don't forget that it still forms part of the evidence at every stage of the trial. Because even if it comes in and it's rejected, it is part of the evidence before the court that may go on appeal, or even the refusal of a trial judge to accept that evidence will itself become the subject of appeal. And that record is there, and it may be played. And other people might also hear it, and that's how it goes up. So I would advise clearly that he better sense it out. We are all interested.
Mr. Kweku Painter, we're grateful for your time here as a private legal practitioner, sharing his thoughts, the intricacies of this Oliver Mausi Barker-Vormawor issue, and now the National Security Minister, Albert Dapaah, taking him to court, suing him, so to speak. Well, that's how we cap off that end of the conversation. Up next, when we return, we'll be heading to Buipe to find out what is happening with our brothers and sisters. For days, there has been no rain, but their location, where they actually reside, has been run over with flood waters. Where the water is coming from, we still cannot technically say. We'll be finding out from NADMO on the ground what is happening. We'll be interacting with our correspondent from that region. That conversation up next on The AM Show.